This is Ray Varner, class of 2010, with the Oral History Living Legacies program and the Women of Randolph-Macon Oral History program. And today is July 12th, 2011. We are in Norfolk, Virginia, and the interviewee today is Sandra Bond, class of 1976. And also in the room is Sarah Hendricks and Claire Stevens from the Development Office. So, hello, Sandra.
Hello.
Or Sandy? Is
Sandy.
it Sandy's been okay. Sorry.
No problem.
So how did you first hear about the college?
I can't remember. I don't remember. It's a long time ago. But one thing is, I went to Roanoke College my freshman year and then transferred to Randolph-Macon in my sophomore year, so I was there for 3 years. And Roanoke College was not a good fit for me. Maybe it was too big, or maybe the whole sorority system. My memory of it is that somehow I was overwhelmed in some way. But Randolph-Macon was a perfect fit. And my parents were friends of the president at the time, Luther White, and his wife, Patricia. And I think we were just looking for places, it came up and was perfect. It was a perfect fit. I loved it this minute I saw it. I remember so distinctly, we would all sit around the fountain when we were seniors and not want to leave. We're like, I can't believe they're going to make us go out in the real world. We did not want to leave Ashland.
So your parents were friends with the president? Do you remember ever talking to him or before you came to school?
Oh, I don't know about before I came to school. Probably so. I think so. I think I came up and met him, but definitely saw him around campus and talked to them. And I remember one time being really embarrassed because I had something in my eye, and my mother called Mrs. White, and she came over to the dorm to check my eye. I was so embarrassed. Like, but it was helpful, very kind. And of course, we do as parents. That's what you do. But at the time, I didn't think it was very cool.
Where are you from?
Newport News. Mm-hmm.
Right. Do you remember your first trip to campus? So if you came to visit before you went there?
I don't remember my first trip to campus, and I've had so many since then. And a very particular first trip to campus when our daughter was looking at colleges, and we took her and two of her friends to Randolph-Macon, and they brought their roller skates and skated all over campus. And I remember that trip. So that's a first, but it wasn't my first trip, but it was her first trip, and just remembering how great it was.
Do you remember what you first thought about the college? Just maybe your first thoughts on it, or what you...
No, I know I was pretty shy at Roanoke College, and so that's one of my main things that seems interesting about the experience as one of the first women, because it brought me out of my shell so quickly. Because if you went to breakfast on a Sunday morning, you could easily be the only woman there, and so I really just became so much better at talking to people and feeling at ease. And so those are some of and it was pretty right away too. And I had great peers. The dorm I was in, it was called New Dorm. I forgot what it's called now.
It's Conrad.
Conrad. But it was New Dorm, and we had great friends on all floors. And mm-hmm.
Okay. Since you were in Roanoke College when... Because you were there, what year were you? So that would have been 73? Okay. But you knew that Randolph-Macon had just gone co-ed. I guess you knew that. I don't know if you looked at it before. I guess you had never heard of it. But did the fact that the college had just gone co-ed, did that have any...
I don't think so. That it had just gone co-ed. I mean, the fact that it was co-ed, I'm sure it was good since I was a woman. But, yeah, there wouldn't be any... There certainly wasn't any thought of now I can go there because it's co-ed, but the fact that it was co-ed, yes.
I know I keep asking you if you remember this stuff, but do you remember your first trip to as a freshman? Do you remember coming onto campus?
Well, I was a sophomore.
Oh, sorry. No,
that's
I'm so
okay.
used to asking that same question.
That's okay. No, I remember a lot about those times, but I don't remember the first time I saw campus. Probably because I've seen it so many times now, it just becomes part of the fabric of your psyche, and so I don't remember the particular first.
What was it like being a sophomore coming into campus, and everyone else has already done a year? What was that like?
Well, there were other transfer students, and some of them I'm still close to as well. I mean, who live in the area, and see them. We always talk about how great it was. It was a pretty easy transition.
Did they have you do anything special or anything? As a
I think I
transfer
kind of, because you go in, I guess you go in a few days early as a transfer, the same way you do as a freshman. So I remember going to a freshman. I remember just feeling like a freshman and just going to the freshman dance and dancing with this tall basketball player. And he was a nice guy, but I, was really shy. And I looked up and I thought, this is how I can break the ice. I'll ask him what's on his T-shirt, and it was these two pigs making out, and it said "Making Bacon." And I was so embarrassed. I thought, what a stupid thing for me to say, but but then it's just funny and ridiculous. So it's all good. Now I remember a lot about those days we had in that dorm that year. I mean, things progressed so much because I don't want to jump ahead, but I mean, you want to stay in the chronological thing. But anyway, that first year we still had dorm mothers. Her name was Mama J. So I'm sure if you've interviewed some of the others in my class, they would tell you about the house mothers. And Mama J was very strict. She lived on the first floor, and someone in my dorm, it was a girls' dorm then, they tied sheets together to have their boyfriend climb up the outside and I think she was expelled. I don't even think it was suspended. I think it was expelled. And then just a few years later, in the in the motel dorms, they were co-ed. I mean, that's what kind of a social turbulence was going on then. Do you mind pausing it for 1 sec so I can get that? I'm gonna have that memory. No, never mind. Yeah, except anyway, Mama J was very strict, and we had to bring all our visitors in and have chaperones, when we had boys in the dorm. It was just such a far cry, even from the time I left Randolph-Macon. It was a big change, so I think that's interesting.
So what were do you remember the policies that they had according to visitation, or is that just what you remember?
I don't remember about days and times. I remember curfews. Yes, I don't remember the exact time, but I remember we had curfews and all the different ways people try to get around them.
Do the boys have curfews?
I don't remember. I bet not. I don't think they had any. I don't think they had dorm mothers. I don't know. They didn't have Mama J. I know that.
So what were some of the ways that you would get around it?
I don't remember getting around it. But my hallmate who tied sheets together to get her boyfriend up, no, I don't know, just probably we made excuses for each other or, went out a back door or something like that.
I guess no one liked
I
the
think
visit.
even by junior year there was no Mama J, no dorm mother. Definitely by senior year there was no dorm mother.
So what was the food like while you were there?
The food was, and because I got your questions ahead of time and I was trying to refresh my memory about things, but I remember specifically about mystery meat, and I think there's something in here about mystery meat. Hold on 1 sec. Oh, Doug? Doug? Okay. So we were talking about mystery meat, and the other thing I remember is, and I think this happens everywhere too, if you went up to get something else, we would pass around somebody's plate all the way. There wouldn't be anything left by the time the person got back, just being silly. But I think the food was fine. It's nothing like nowadays. I mean, I haven't been in the Randolph-Macon cafeteria lately, but I know the JMU cafeteria was one of the top in the country. I mean, now they, all the food stations and the healthier foods, it wasn't like that, but it certainly was fine. I remember because I took pictures and I was involved with the yearbook and the newspaper that I would take diet dressing in a film canister because it was way before there were options like that of diet dressings and things like that. So that's a strong memory because I did it every day.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your social life? So just what you did, the activities, or.
Mm-hmm. So I was on the yearbook team and the newspaper staff, but I really loved developing pictures. That was my love. And upstairs in the student center there was a dark room, and so I loved doing that. And I was in the Randolph-Macon Film Society. I don't know if that still exists, and the Literary Society. And I played on the girls' varsity tennis team and loved that. And so we got to go to other schools, and that was fun to do, to see other schools, traveling on the tennis team, and just very involved with everything.
So, at the time, what was it like to be on the Yellow Jacket staff? What was it? Well, not the staff, but what was that like? Can you say anything more else?
Well, I'd go to different events to take pictures, and I was just really involved anyway because I loved it so much.
So were you mainly a photographer?
Mm-hmm.
Or would you
No, I wrote some articles.
What
I
would
do.
you write about?
I should have looked at them. I have some of them upstairs, but I can't remember what they're about. I think just different events on campus. And I was an English major, and you may remember Richie Watson. He only just retired last year, but he was I think that's one of the questions. He was my advisor, and so I was involved in a lot of those kinds of things.
Or was it, considering the time period, the 70s, did you feel like the paper was a little more charged then than they might, be today?
Probably not. I would think not. I think things were probably more, it's okay to be more challenging now than even then. I mean, then it was more rebellious, but now it's probably more acceptable to be open to a lot of different points of view. And I didn't do editorial things or opinion pieces. I was doing mostly covering events that I remember. Different speakers who came to campus or a play. We had different authors or poets who came.
Do you remember any of them?
Mark Strand, I remember, the poet. Mm-hmm. I just saw another one in here when I looked. You can keep going. I can keep talking. Camptown races, I remember those that well.
So they still horse racing?
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, you couldn't get down the interstate. Everybody would just be stopped on the interstate, throwing a frisbee, and that was just part of the fun. I didn't even know till earlier. I looked in here. There's a little teeny picture of me getting my diploma. I never knew it, but it was fun because I took pictures for the yearbook. So I went to a lot of the fraternity events and took pictures there. That's me at the Film Society. See, it's me, Richie Watson, George Barrow, and Professor McElwain. So that's, if you've never heard of the society, that's probably why. Because there were only 2 students and 2 professors. And so that's the newspaper, and this is the yearbook. So you see our little motley crew there and here. But it was really fun. I took a lot of pictures. Oh, I know. I was going to look up that. I forgot which. Anyway, there was another author in here.
Did you know how to take pictures and develop film before you got to Randolph-Macon, or did someone there teach you?
Somebody showed me how. I really liked it.
The student?
35 millimeter. Probably. I mean, because the student center was new. So that place where we developed pictures, that was all new. No, I'd never worked with chemicals and film.
And
no,
you
that was like
mentioned that you would go to fraternity parties to take pictures. Do you remember any sort of big, particular annual fraternity parties or events? You mentioned Camptown races as well.
Yeah.
Things to note.
No, I don't remember any in particular, just the regularity. Just a lot of different ones. I'll think about that.
What else would go on at Camptown races? You mentioned the long.
Oh, and basketball game. Oh, yeah. Just, in the 70s, there were streakers at Camptown races. That was very popular. Remember somebody streaked across the Tonight Show one night? So there'd be somebody streaking at Camptown races. So that's just ridiculous. Now they'd probably be arrested. Probably couldn't get away with that anymore. You'd take a blanket or something, everybody'd sit around, and probably they just drank. I don't know if we watched horse races or not, but same with because when Randolph-Macon brought me out of my shell, there was no turning back. I remember go to so many football games, you'd never see any of the game. You'd just be talking in the stands the whole time. But also we had the old gym, which is long gone, and Macon Brock is a member of this community, and I know he's put that beautiful center in that's so beautiful. But we had the old gym, and it had a second floor track, and I thought that was the greatest thing ever. I loved running track up there, and there was an old clock, and I've mentioned that from time to time. People say, "Remember that clock?" I don't know where it is now, but it must have been renowned on the East Coast, because if I've mentioned it to a history professor at ODU, like, oh yeah, we've heard of that clock and that gym. And Wash Hall, that was another place that I think has been torn down. I think we probably had a demonstration or something.
Your demonstration worked.
Yes.
It was not torn down.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's still there. It's beautifully renovated.
Oh,
Beautifully,
great.
beautifully
Neat.
renovated.
So you mentioned you were on the tennis team.
Hmm.
So what was that like?
That was really fun, and I think it's one of those opportunities, if I think about it, in the number of women who were there and weren't there, maybe I wouldn't have made it onto the tennis team if there were, half and half as it is now. But it was really fun. But I'm not competitive at all, but it was really fun to go see the other schools and to play on the team and to have practice. We did. Rachel, I've forgotten her last name. Rachel Anderson. She was our coach, and no, we had good friends. It was good time.
And that was one of the only sports teams for women.
It was the only one. Yeah, so I feel even luckier. I'd forgotten that.
One other
Cheerleaders, they were women. Yeah.
Cheerleaders. Another question. This is sort of jumping back a little bit, but you had mentioned that you lived in Conrad and the, I guess, house mom or dorm mother. But do you remember your roommates or particularly close friendships that you made your sophomore year and or throughout?
Right, because a lot of them are still my closest friends, and we see each other all the time. And we met at Randolph-Macon for the talent show, and we're godmothers to each other's children, and so I remember them well. I remember in all the nutty stuff we did, we would leave on Wednesday afternoon and go to not Snowshoe, not Massanutten. What's the one outside of Charlottesville? Wintergreen for the night skiing, and then we'd get back so late we'd be too tired to go to our 8 o'clock classes and just dumb stuff like that. And we had great times. But I remember them all my roommates. Some were better fits than others, but as you get older, you can choose your roommates,
Right.
and so we really had fun.
Was your first roommate at Randolph-Macon? Did that situation go pretty well?
No, I don't remember going particularly well, but we were okay. You know how people that are okay roommates, but not your good friends forever. So.
Were they also a transfer student, or were they?
She might have been. I think she might have been. But so eventually, most of my roommates and suite mates were a year or two younger. So after I left Randolph-Macon, I went to graduate school at University of Richmond. So I came back a lot. I was on the 6-year plan. No, because I saw a lot of them still. So many of my friends were a little bit younger. But also the older ones you really admire too. They're the ones who you always know all their faces in the yearbook because you've looked at them so much. But the younger ones, a lot of those were good friends.
So did you ever feel? Since you obviously were on the only women's team, was there was a men's tennis team right at the time? Did you ever feel like that you were a second-class citizen in terms of sports or anything like that?
I don't think so, because the sport I wanted to play had a team. Maybe if I played field hockey or something, maybe I would have felt differently about it.
But you felt like you were, you had good equipment, good everything?
Well, you bring your own racket, and so our wooden rackets or our aluminum rackets, our Billie Jean King racket.
Okay, so
I never felt second class anyway, and it may be because there weren't many women. We always felt more special than second class citizens. I do remember us thinking that, because I dated people on campus, but I also remember our sense of a lot of the guys leaving on Friday afternoon to go to Mary Washington, because maybe that was not co-ed yet, it was all women. So I remember us, what are we, chopped liver? And but it all evened out. It was okay.
So you said you were an English major. Did you come into college? Well, did you transfer thinking that you would be an English major?
No. I just, when you take your classes and something resonates, it was that. And I had really good professors, and I really like the classes. I think I didn't know. I think I liked psychology and sociology, and I wasn't sure. I have very vivid memories of biology 101 and not wanting to get into the mice thing and bringing them home. Oh yeah, this is a big one. We had housekeepers at the time in the dorm. I don't know if they still do, but we had Big Bernice and her daughter Little Bernice, and we were all very close to them. They came to our wedding. They went to everyone's weddings. But so I brought in these mice from biology class because they were going to feed them to the snakes, and we named them Dr. Gates and Dr. Smith after all our science professors, and they started calling in wild rats from the outside. It was just, we had to get rid of them, but we had them for quite a while. But we had the whole mouse cage thing and the water bottle and those silly things you do.
Were you allowed to have rats, or was it
I'm
something
sure
that...
we weren't. They were mice. They weren't rats.
Oh,
No.
I'm sorry,
No, they did call in wild rats from the outside. I don't know if there was anything about it or not. I don't remember trying to hide them. I remember being on the sink in the cage, but I'm sure it wasn't anybody's favorite thing, especially Bernice and Bernice.
So is there any one class in particular that made you want to do an English major, or one professor or anything?
Sure. It would be Richie Watson, sure. And one of my neighbors graduated 3 years ago, and he majored in English because of Richie Watson. So I know that's an oft-told tale. But their daughters were in our wedding, and he's Doug's godfather, and so we've been particularly close. And also different friends of mine from Randolph-Macon, their children have gone there, and have graduated in recent years. So gone to graduation and the luncheon at the Smoky Pig and all those kind of things. So, and typically a lot of our English professors have still been in there, or a lot of different things. When the Watson girls got married, we see the professors and kept up with them for a long time. Years and years.
So what is it about Richie Watson that brings all these people to him and to English?
He's a good professor, and it's interesting material. Did you have what are you majoring in?
I majored in German. I never had Richie Watson.
He taught Southern literature.
Oh, he did. He did. I love Southern literature. Mm-hmm.
So do you remember any other classes you had with him? Or?
Well, 20th century realism, I took every class that he offered. But I also remember I had a lot of history classes with George Brown Oliver, who was kind of a legend in his own time too, and he was great. Yeah, he was great. I think he taught at Mary Washington too, or his wife was at Mary Washington. Yeah.
And he still lives essentially across the street from Mary Washington.
He's another great one.
So, are there any other classes that might stand out that you really enjoyed, or you felt like were crucial classes in development? Or?
I took a lot of, I guess it was still called J-term, or colloquy. Anyway, it was that 1 month in January, and I usually took something related to what they called at the time Black literature. Now that I'm sure they call it African American literature or something, but I always love those classes. I love those classes, and that broadened my horizons too. Someone who'd gone to a small private school in Newport News, and that was good as well.
Who was the professor of those classes?
Probably sometimes it was Richie Watson or George Brown Oliver, but I can't remember who else it might have been.
And okay, all right. So can you tell us what you did after graduation? So immediately after.
Immediately after I moved to
grad school,
immediately after Randolph-Macon, I immediately went to graduate school because I thought I would never have time again to do that.
In English?
In American literature. And that took 4 years. I worked full-time near campus. And
Where were you working?
I was working at a small men's clothing store called the Squire Shop that is now the bakery department of Ukrops, which is now Martin's. I mean, the whole shopping center doesn't exist anymore. And so it took me 4 years to get my master's, and I graduated from graduate school the same day that my brother graduated from undergraduate school at University of Richmond. So it was great. And then I went to work for Jacques Cousteau. I was living in Richmond, and I had heard that he was moving his headquarters to Norfolk. And I had started dating a guy that I met. I sold him a sport coat in the Squire shop. He had just graduated from Virginia Tech, and now he's my husband. So he had the opportunity, we could kind of choose where he wanted to go. So we moved to the beach, and then I started volunteering at the Cousteau Society, and then I worked there for the next 15 years.
What did you do there?
A lot of different things, fundraising. We had a field study program where people paid to go on to get kind of a slice of life of expedition. And I went and taught literature of the sea because that was my background. So that was really fun. I went to the British Virgin Islands and Fiji and different places. So it all kind of went together. Did some writing for the magazines and really fun.
So, throughout that whole time, how did you stay in contact with the college?
Well, we went back for homecoming and different events, and sometimes we'd go back for, I forget what they call them, when you talk about your job or your career, career day.
Symposium.
Yeah, career symposiums or different sporting events or other kinds of things like talent shows. Because we were still very close to the Watsons, and they founded the talent show, and or any just kind of things that got us going there. I have a reunion coming up this year.
Yeah.
In October.
You're going to come back?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Do you think a lot of your friends will as well? Excellent.
I do.
So, were your friends mostly that you had while on school, were they mostly other people who worked in the Yellow Jacket, or
Some were and some weren't.
okay, so you just had a mixture of friends, I guess.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So,
In terms of friendship, I mean, it's. I think it's a little unusual or a little singular to Randolph-Macon, at least in my opinion. The relationships that students have with faculty, and I think it's incredible. But how did you become so close with Professor Watson, for example? I mean, what was the bridge from the classroom, and did he have you over to his house? Did he and his wife?
Watson's had us over to their house for different English events, but also he had young children, and I did a lot of babysitting. So I babysat for them, and some of my friends babysat for them, and and he's not that much older than we are. I think he's maybe 4 or 5 years older than we are. So, and they had a lot of events there that they had other professors too. So it's a very congenial group. Yeah, really fun. And because then we got to know Ashland really well. His first house was on the railroad tracks, and then they moved over to South James Street. But just got to know other professors that way, and hanging out in the student center.
Did that intimidate you to see the faculty members in social situations? I feel if I were 20, I would be totally beside myself if I had to have dinner with faculty. It's a wonderful education in and of itself, really.
That's true. I don't remember feeling as intimidated as I would think I would have felt, just feeling at ease. But maybe it's because I've had all these years as an adult still knowing those professors. I've been shocked when I go back that professors remember us. They have so many students. I mean, they're stars in our eyes, but they have so many students, but they always, I can't remember where I was. Maybe it was a graduation for a friend's child a couple years ago, and sat near Dr. McElwain, and he remembered right away. I was just so shocked because I know I see him maybe once every year, every other year, but still, they remember us seems more shocking than we would remember all of them.
As you were, a question that I always sort of like to ask, it's very broad, but obviously you knew we were coming today and pulled out your yearbook and have been thinking about your experiences. Is there anything that we have not asked a question that pinpointed a particular story that you wanted to share?
I can't think of anything in particular because in some ways it was a very normal college experience, and then in other ways it seems more unusual because there weren't many girls at the time, but it really gave us the chance to get to know the guys who were there. And so for me, being so shy, that was pretty important. I never was shy again. You just learn to talk to people, and then that was it. You know, people have different experiences in their lives. Like our son did the internship on Congress. Well, he learned on giving all those tours how to talk to people about. I mean, there's people usually have different experiences to get to that point, but for me, it was Randolph-Macon. We were just, yeah, so happy there. We were very happy. We all had popcorn poppers, and we would make so much popcorn. I don't know. We survived. And then we'd, you know, they had these yellow domes, and you'd put the oil on the bottom, and they'd pop, and then we'd dump it all on these newspapers. It was so terrible. But, so I think we had a lot of adventures. That was before the George Foreman cookers, but I think those came in toward the end. But they were before the microwaves and different things that people had. There was a kitchen on the first floor, and we would cook from time to time. And Mayberry's ice cream shop, that was a big deal. And there was a Ben Franklin up on Main Street? No, what's the street that goes by the campus? England Street. And there was something like a Ben Franklin, and one of my really good friends whose daughter just graduated this past year from Randolph-Macon, but she and I went up to the Ben Franklin for a day, and we bought material and made our own dresses for the dance, which are the most awful looking things, but we thought they were beautiful. But so we had a lot of really fun, just regular college experiences.
What was the dance that you went to?
Probably just some regular dance.
What were the regular dances? There's no longer any dances at
around.
Randolph-Macon, so.
No way. No dances at all, like homecoming dance?
Well, there's no homecoming dance.
Oh.
But there's no other dances either. I mean, maybe the fraternities might have a.
Mm-hmm.
Senior gala, don't y'all dance there?
It's not really a dance, though. It's just. But I mean, there's no formal.
So we had a homecoming dance. There'd be dances that are around football games or something, or the freshman dance that you mentioned before. And there were dances from time to time in the gym, in the old gym. Yeah, really fun.
Do you remember when they tore that down, all of the outrage and the...
Oh, yeah.
So as students, you were aware of what a calamity
how long
that was?
ago was that?
It was when you were a student, I think, like 75, 74, is when they tore down the old, the old gym that had all the graffiti on it and put up the fountain.
Right.
That the older alarms, like from 30s, 40s, 50s. I mean, that was
Terrible.
beyond the pale for them.
Yeah, I remember Wash Frank Hall a little more vividly, but I love that old gym and running around that track upstairs. I thought that was so cool.
So when you say the old gym, you mean?
It may be the same gym. I don't know what it is.
Which gym are you?
It was an old gym. It had an old clock in it and had I know it was old because it's the same kind of wood that's in that famous Jimmy Stewart movie. What's that? It's a Wonderful Life. You know, that old wooden floor that opens up to the pool. It was that kind of wood on the track.
It was pink. Was the
alumni gym?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're talking about different old gyms.
Yeah, the alumni gym, which is what you're talking about, is still standing. And in fact, that banked track is still up there. It's totally condemned.
Yeah, you're not.
And you're not supposed to go up there.
It probably was supposed to be. It would have been condemned in 1976, but.
And of course, I guess they closed the pool to build the Brock Center. Or maybe they closed it before then. Do you know when they closed that pool?
I don't remember the pool. I don't remember a pool at all.
Where the training room now used to be a pool. Yeah, when they closed it.
Because the older gym was destroyed in 1972. So.
That would be before I got there.
Yeah.
Okay. So my memory's not quite as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah. You're like, what is she talking about? I'm trying to confuse her. So you mentioned that the girls felt not like second-class citizens, but more special. But you guys were keenly aware that you were feeling that you were doing something special, that you were these.
Kind of, but it wasn't for a reason. It was just kind of happenstance almost. We just happened to be there at that time. Yeah, but I know there were many, many more guys than there were girls.
Did you feel in classes, were you ever made aware of the fact that you were one of just few women in a big class of men? Like in an English class, for example, do you feel
the same way that I remembered, say, going to breakfast on a weekend morning when a lot of people would have been out the night before, not that many people would have been going anyway. I remember there being much more of a disparity then. I don't remember in classes so much, but probably, especially in a big class like maybe Biology 101, where you would think, whole auditorium. I'm sure it was noticeable then. It just didn't hit me in the same way. I just don't have the memories of it that I did. We would go on Sunday mornings. We go to Duncan Memorial Church. A lot of friends. We just loved every minute of it.
Did you, if you, in retrospect, I mean, looking back with the memories and the sort of ideas that you have now as an adult, is there any particular advice you would give a young woman, but really any student, as they are about to enter Randolph-Macon as freshmen? Or any college, really, but the idea of sort of, in retrospect, what you might do differently or what you really, really valued?
I think what I might have done if I had thought about it, because we just loved it so much and had such a good time, which is great. Our parents didn't seem to know how great a time. I mean, we didn't do anything bad. We just loved it so much. We just loved every experience. And I think I did fine academically, but I think looking back on, and then I got into graduate school and did fine there too. But I think I would have tried. I wish I'd been more competitive about things. Like on tennis, like we're all having a great time, and in class, I wish I'd. And I know I did fine academically. It's not that. It's just I wish I'd sought more of the opportunities. I see what our son just had at Georgetown, and how he really went after opportunities. And so maybe if I'd been a little more, maybe mature in my educational goals. I loved it. I loved my classes and just. I loved it. It's not that. I just, and I was serious about it, but I wish I'd been a little more serious about it. Maybe. I don't know. I toy now with. I just was thinking about maybe I should get my PhD. It's like, and then I looked at because there wasn't a PhD program in English at ODU at the time, but they've just introduced it in recent years, and I saw that it takes 7 years. I'm like, God. Why couldn't I have done it back in 1980 after graduate school? So anywhere else, but you can't. You get married and have kids and jobs, and it's just more difficult. But I kind of because I would say to any student, enjoy it, love it every minute, and go for every opportunity you can. And I've heard all those graduation speakers, and they all seem like have similar advice. Go to class every day and. Mostly we did, but not after we'd been to Wintergreen skiing the night before. But those are great memories too, and education in their own way.
If there's nothing else that you'd like to say or have on record, then I guess we're done. But thank you for your time.
Thank you.